So here's the thing about the Galactic Military Academy. It's basically what would happen if you took every drill sergeant's fever dream, cranked it up to 11, and then launched it into space. Station Fortress Prime orbits a dying star, which the instructors claim is symbolic. The cadets just call it dramatic. Marcus Webb stood in formation with 200 other cadets, representing 47 different species from across known space. He was acutely aware that he was the only human in the entire program. Earth had only joined the Galactic Council 8 months ago, and apparently someone in the diplomatic corps thought it would be a fantastic idea to throw a human into the most prestigious and punishing military academy in the galaxy. Marcus suspected that person was either incredibly optimistic or had a wicked sense of humor. "Welcome to your final training cycle," Commander Vrel announced from the platform above them. Vrel was a Korthan, which meant he looked like someone had crossed a mantis with a nightmare and given it 6 arms and a really bad attitude. His voice echoed through the massive training hall like gravel in a blender. 40% of you will be injured during your final examination. 10% will require medical intervention beyond standard regeneration protocols, and all of you will wish you had chosen easier career paths. Marcus noticed the cadet next to him, a bird-like avian named Pip, was literally vibrating with anxiety. Her feathers kept shifting colors from blue to gray and back again. "Breathe, Pip," Marcus whispered. "He's just trying to scare us." "It's working," Pip chirped back, her voice barely audible. On Marcus's other side stood Grunther, a living rock formation from Granite Prime. Grunther communicated exclusively through subharmonic rumbles that Marcus had learned to interpret over the past 6 months. Right now, Grunther was essentially saying the equivalent of "this is fine," in a tone that suggested it was absolutely not fine. Then there was Kreevor. Kreevor was 8 feet of muscle, claws, and teeth from the Thraxian Empire, a species that had evolved from apex predators and never let anyone forget it. His scales were deep crimson, his eyes were vertical slits of pure yellow, and he had the personality of a chainsaw mixed with entitlement. He stood 3 rows ahead of Marcus, but even from behind, you could practically see the arrogance radiating off him like heat shimmer. "The human is still here," Kreevor announced loudly, turning to look directly at Marcus. Several dozen heads swiveled to watch. "I had assumed it would have fled back to its primitive world by now. Tell me, soft skin, do you require a comfort blanket for the final exam? Perhaps some warm milk?" A few cadets laughed. Most just watched with the kind of morbid curiosity usually reserved for impending disasters. Marcus smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who had spent 6 months listening to this garbage and had been stockpiling comebacks like nuclear weapons. "I'm good, thanks," Marcus said cheerfully. "But I appreciate the concern. It's nice to know you've been thinking about me. Should I be worried? Do you dream about me too, or is it just the waking hours?" The laughter shifted directions. Kreevor's scales darkened, which Marcus had learned meant the big lizard was either embarrassed or about to commit murder. Possibly both. Commander Vrel's mandibles clicked together sharply. Silence. Kreevor, face forward. "Webb, stop antagonizing the predator species." "Yes, sir," they both said, though Marcus was still smiling. The truth was, Marcus had dealt with worse than Kreevor. Before joining the academy, he had spent 8 years in Earth Special Forces, including 2 tours that were still classified. He had learned a long time ago that the biggest, scariest-looking opponent usually had the biggest, scariest-looking ego to match, and egos were easy to exploit. The briefing continued with Vrel explaining the details of their final examination, but Marcus was only half listening. He was watching Kreevor's shoulders, noting the tension there. The Thraxian was genuinely angry now, which meant Marcus had about 3 days before Kreevor did something monumentally stupid. Marcus gave it 2 days. He was an optimist. The confrontation happened in the combat training hall, which was essentially a massive arena where cadets practiced various forms of creative violence under the watchful eyes of instructor drones. Marcus was running through a hand-to-hand combat simulation when Kreevor decided it was time to make his move. "Attention, everyone!" Kreevor bellowed, his voice carrying across the entire hall. The drones paused. Cadets stopped mid-punch. Even Grunther's rumbling went quiet. I believe it is time we address the weakness in our ranks. The human. Marcus turned off his simulation and turned around slowly. Pip, who had been practicing evasive maneuvers nearby, immediately flew up to the observation deck. Smart bird. Oh, good, Marcus said, walking toward the center of the arena. I was hoping we could do this in public. Really adds to the drama. Did you prepare a speech? Please tell me you prepared a speech. Crevor descended from his training platform with the kind of predatory grace that would have been impressive if it wasn't so obviously rehearsed. He had an audience now and he was going to use it. Humans are prey, Crevor announced. Soft, weak, ambulatory meat sacks that somehow convinced the council they deserved a seat at the table. Your species has no claws, no natural armor, no venom. You are biologically designed to be eaten. And yet here you stand, pretending to be a warrior. Wow, Marcus said, nodding thoughtfully. That's actually pretty hurtful, Crevor. I'm going to need you to write an apology note to my emotional support therapist. Her name is Lieutenant Sarcasm, and she's going to have some words for you. A few cadets laughed. Crevor's claws extended. You mock because you cannot fight. You hide behind words because you lack the strength to back them up. Humans are a joke species, and you are the punchline. Marcus scratched his chin, still smiling. Okay, real talk for a second. You've been obsessed with me since day one. I'm starting to think this isn't about species superiority at all. This is about you needing therapy. Have you considered talking to someone about these feelings? Crevor's tail lashed against the floor, leaving gouges in the reinforced metal. I challenge you, human. Prove you belong here, or admit your weakness and leave. Challenge me how? Marcus asked. Because if we're talking arm wrestling, I should warn you that I've been carbo-loading. The Vault of Ancients, Crevor said, and suddenly the entire room went very quiet. It is forbidden for cadets to enter without authorization. The weapons of extinct civilizations are stored there, guarded by automated defenses designed to kill. Accompany me there. Prove your courage, or refuse, and confirm what we all already know. Marcus considered this. The Vault of Ancients was absolutely off-limits. Getting caught anywhere near it meant immediate expulsion. Of course, Crevor had just challenged him in front of approximately 100 witnesses, which meant refusing would be a public humiliation. It was actually a pretty clever trap. Too bad Marcus had spent his entire military career being clever right back. Sure, Marcus said. I'll go. On one condition. Crevor's eyes narrowed. What condition? You come with me. No backing out. We go together, or this whole thing is just you being a coward who talks big but acts small. It was Crevor's turn to be trapped. He had just publicly declared the vault a test of courage. Refusing to accompany Marcus would be the same as admitting fear. Agreed, Crevor snarled. Fantastic, Marcus said. It's a date. Should I bring snacks? From the observation deck, Commander Vrel's voice cut through the tension like a plasma blade. Both of you. My office. Now. As they walked toward the exit, Grunther rumbled something that roughly translated to, humans are insane. And Pip chirped her agreement. Marcus just kept smiling. In his experience, when someone tried to back you into a corner, the best response was to walk forward and make them regret it. 15 minutes later, sitting in Commander Vrel's office, Marcus learned something interesting. The old mantis had been listening the entire time. You two have presented me with an opportunity, Vrel said, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. Your final examination was going to be a standard combat assessment. Boring, predictable, but this is far more interesting. Sir, Crevor said, confused. You will both go to the Vault of Ancients, along with 2 support team members of my choosing. You will retrieve a specific artifact and return it intact. This will constitute your final examination. Marcus blinked. That sounds suspiciously like you were encouraging the thing you just called us to your office for. I am an instructor, Vrel said. I am here to facilitate learning experiences, and you two clearly need to learn something. Dismissed. As they left the office, Crevor turned to Marcus. This changes nothing, human. You will still fail. Maybe, Marcus said, but at least I'll fail with style. The Vault of Ancients was located 17 levels below the Academy's main structure. which made sense because that's apparently where all civilizations keep their most dangerous artifacts. Marcus, Crevor, Pip, and Grunther stood at the entrance with Commander Vrel, staring at a massive door covered in warning symbols from 40 different extinct languages. "I feel I should mention," Pip said quietly, her feathers cycling through several shades of purple, "that this is the worst idea in the history of bad ideas." Grunther rumbled in agreement. "Your objective is simple," Vrel explained, completely ignoring Pip's very reasonable concern. "Navigate the vault. Retrieve the artifact designated Relic 773. Return alive. Try not to activate anything that could destroy the station." "That last part feels important," Marcus noted. "It is extraordinarily important," Vrel confirmed. "Which is why I am accompanying you. Not to help, but to ensure you do not accidentally trigger an apocalypse." The door opened with a sound like grinding bones. Beyond it stretched a corridor that seemed to go on forever, lit by strips of bioluminescent fungus that probably predated the concept of electricity. "After you," Craver said to Marcus with a mocking bow. "How chivalrous," Marcus replied, stepping through the doorway. "If we die horribly, I want you to know that this is definitely your fault." The vault was exactly as terrible as advertised. The corridors twisted in geometrically impossible ways. The walls were lined with containment fields holding weapons that looked like they could crack planets. Several times they passed rooms where the automated defenses tracked their movement with clicking, whirring sounds that suggested very much still functional murder machines. Pip stayed in the middle of the group, practically glued to Grunther's rocky back. Grunther himself kept rumbling observations about the architecture that Marcus suspected were the geological equivalent of nervous babbling. Crevor led from the front, his predator instincts serving him well in the darkness. And Marcus did what humans do best. He improvised. When they encountered a door that required a specific harmonic frequency to open, Marcus pulled out a ration pack, tapped it against the control panel in progressively annoying rhythms until something clicked, and the door opened. "Did you just percussive maintenance an ancient alien lock?" Pip asked. "Sometimes hitting things is the answer," Marcus explained. "It's a very human philosophy." When they triggered a pressure plate that activated spinning blade traps, Marcus jammed the mechanism with a piece of synthetic fabric torn from his uniform, combined with some adhesive gel from the medical kit, effectively creating the galaxy's most dangerous duct tape application. Crevor watched this with visible confusion. "Your species solves problems with improvised textile applications? Our species once fixed a space station's CO2 scrubbers with spare parts and a sock," Marcus said. "This is actually pretty advanced by our standards." 3 hours in, they reached a chamber where the floor was a complex pattern of tiles, clearly a puzzle of some kind. Crevor examined it, growled, and started trying to logic out the solution. Marcus walked up, noticed that one tile had a slightly different wear pattern than the others, and just started stepping on tiles in a straight line toward the obvious path. "You cannot simply guess your way through an ancient security puzzle," Crevor protested. "Watch me," Marcus said, making it to the other side without incident. The others followed his path carefully. Vrel's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Humans," Crevor muttered. "Insufferable." "We prefer confidently lucky," Marcus corrected. They descended deeper. The air grew colder. The technology around them became progressively more incomprehensible. At one point, they passed a containment field, holding what appeared to be a small star, just casually imprisoned in a force field, like that was normal. "Why would anyone need a pet star?" Pip whispered. "Decoration?" Marcus suggested. "Really expensive nightlight?" Finally, they reached the central chamber. It was circular, vast, and empty, except for a single pedestal in the center. On the pedestal sat the artifact, a metallic cylinder about the length of Marcus's forearm, covered in symbols that seemed to shift when you looked at them directly. "That's it," Vrel confirmed. "Relic 773. Retrieve it carefully." Crevor started forward immediately. Marcus grabbed his arm. "Wait, look at the pedestal." "I am looking at it, human. It is a pedestal." "Look at the floor around it." The floor surrounding the pedestal was discolored in a perfect circle, slightly darker than the rest. It was subtle, but Marcus had learned to notice subtle things during his years in reconnaissance. "It's a pressure sensor," Marcus said. "Take the artifact, and something bad probably happens." "Everything here is designed to kill us," Creever said. "What is one more trap?" "How about we don't find out?" Pip suggested desperately, but Crevor had already shaken off Marcus's hand and strode forward. Because of course he did. Pride was a hell of a drug. Crevor reached the pedestal, grabbed the relic with both claws, and lifted it triumphantly. For exactly 2 seconds, nothing happened. Then everything happened at once. The relic lit up like someone had plugged it into a star. Blue light erupted from the symbols, wrapping around Crevor's arms. The Thraxian roared, tried to drop the cylinder, and discovered it was now magnetically bonded to his hands. "Release it," Vrel barked. "I am trying," Crever snarled. The relic began scanning him. Holographic displays erupted into the air, showing anatomical diagrams of Thraxian biology, combat capabilities, threat assessment algorithms. Numbers and alien text scrolled past faster than anyone could read. Then the relic made a sound like a disappointed sigh and violently rejected him. Crever flew backward 15 feet, crashed into Grunther, and both of them went down in a tangle of scales and rocks. The relic clattered to the floor, still glowing. "Well," Marcus said into the stunned silence. "That could have gone better." The relic wasn't done. It rose into the air on its own, spinning slowly, and began scanning each of them in turn. When it scanned Pip, she squeaked and hid behind Grunther. When it scanned Grunther, the rock creature rumbled nervously. When it scanned Commander Vrel, the Mantis instructor remained perfectly still. Then it turned to Marcus. The scan felt like being looked at by the universe itself. Marcus stood still, arms at his sides, and let whatever was happening happen. The holographic displays erupted again, but this time they were different, more detailed, more interested. The relic floated toward him. Crevor, still recovering on the floor, managed to gasp out, "No, the human cannot be chosen, that is impossible." The relic apparently disagreed. It pressed itself into Marcus's hand and bonded there, warm and humming with energy. The symbols on its surface rearranged themselves into something almost like English, though the alphabet was still alien. New holographic displays filled the chamber. These ones showed Earth, showed humans, showed evolutionary history presented like a tactical analysis. Marcus watched, fascinated, as the relic displayed humanity's progression from persistence hunters to spacefaring civilization. A voice emerged from the relic, synthesized and ancient, speaking Galactic Common with an accent that suggested it had learned the language from databases rather than speakers. Species classification, human. Origin world, Earth, Sol system. Biological assessment, moderate physical capability. Psychological assessment, extreme. Combat doctrine, persistence, adaptation, psychological warfare. Conclusion, compatible. Compatible with what? Marcus asked. The holographic displays shifted, showing a species Marcus didn't recognize. They looked almost human, but not quite. Taller, four-armed, eyes that were too large and too knowing. "The predecessors," Vrel said quietly. "They vanished 8,000 years ago. They built the vault. They left the relics." "We studied Earth," the relic continued, as if Vrel hadn't spoken. "We found you fascinating. You were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most intelligent, but you were the most persistent. You chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. You adapted to every environment. You survived extinctions that killed your competitors. You created weapons not from instinct, but from imagination." "Okay," Marcus said slowly. "But why does that make me compatible with an ancient alien weapon?" "I'm not a weapon," the relic corrected. "I am a force multiplier. I was designed for species that understand that victory is not about strength. It is about refusing to lose. About outlasting. About thinking 3 steps ahead while your opponent thinks 1 step ahead. About making your enemy tired, frustrated, and willing to surrender just to make you stop." Crevor had managed to stand up. "That is not how war works. That is exactly how war works, Marcus said, finally understanding. Especially for humans. We don't win fights because we're stronger. We win because we're too stubborn to quit and too creative to fight fair. The relic pulsed with what might have been approval. Assessment confirmed, it said. Bonding complete. Would you like to access the instruction manual? There's a manual? Pip asked hopefully. There is a manual, the relic confirmed. Great, Marcus said. Let's start with the basics, like, how do I prevent you from accidentally destroying everything? That is an excellent first question, the relic said. Unfortunately, the answer is complicated. Of course it is, Marcus sighed. The instruction manual turned out to be less of a manual and more of a psychic download directly into Marcus' brain, which was exactly as uncomfortable as it sounded. Information flooded his consciousness. Tactical applications, strategic paradigms, and something the relic cheerfully called reality-adjacent probability manipulation. Wait, Marcus said, clutching his head as the download continued. Did you just say reality manipulation? Reality-adjacent probability manipulation, the relic corrected. I cannot change physics. I can, however, make unlikely things more likely to occur in your favor. Within reasonable parameters, mostly. Define mostly, Pip said from behind Grunther. It means that sometimes things explode, the relic admitted. But usually only hostile things. As if to demonstrate defensive protocols activated throughout the vault. The walls began reconfiguring themselves. Ancient technology coming alive after millennia of dormancy. Corridors sealed. New passages opened. Somewhere in the distance, something that sounded like an alarm began wailing in a frequency that made everyone's teeth hurt. Marcus, Vrel said with forced calm, please tell the relic to stop doing that. I'm not telling it to do anything, Marcus protested. This is like autopilot gone rogue. Defensive protocols activated, the relic announced helpfully. Threat assessment. Environment contains multiple predator-class species in proximity to bonded user. Recommendation. Establish tactical superiority. We're not threats, Pip shrieked. We're his team. Updating threat assessment, the relic said. Recalibrating. The wall stopped moving, but now the corridor they had come through was completely blocked. Their only option was forward, deeper into the vault, through passages that were actively reconfiguring themselves. Excellent work, human, Craver snarled. You have trapped us in the most dangerous location in the galaxy with a malfunctioning artifact of mass destruction. In my defense, Marcus said, I didn't ask for this. I was perfectly happy just being a regular cadet who gets insulted by oversized lizards. I am not a lizard. Guys, Pip interrupted. Maybe we could argue later, when we're not about to be killed by ancient security systems? She had a point. Around them, the vault was coming alive in ways that suggested its idea of security was creative homicide. Weapon emplacements emerged from the walls. Floors began rotating. Something that looked like a laser grid appeared across their path, humming with lethal intent. Relic, Marcus said, focusing on the device bonded to his hand. Can you get us out of here? Yes, the relic replied, but you must learn to work with me. I enhance your capabilities. I do not replace them. Think tactically. Consider your environment. I will amplify your intentions. Marcus looked at the laser grid. Standard security thinking would suggest trying to disable it or find a way around it. But the relic had said it amplified intentions, made unlikely things more likely. What if he intended for the grid to malfunction? He focused on that thought, on the probability of an ancient system having a glitch after thousands of years of dormancy. The relic hummed. The laser grid flickered once, twice, and then shut down completely. Okay, Marcus said. That's actually pretty cool. They moved forward as a group, with Marcus experimenting with the relic's capabilities. When they encountered a locked door, he focused on the probability that it had been left unlocked. It opened. When Crevor nearly triggered a floor trap, Marcus thought about the probability that the trap was already sprung. It was. You are cheating at reality, Crevor observed. I'm creatively reinterpreting probability, Marcus corrected. Totally different. Grunther rumbled something that translated to, "Humans are terrifying." "We know," Marcus said cheerfully. They fought their way up through 3 more levels. Well, fought was generous. Mostly Marcus bent probability in their favor while Crevor reluctantly provided muscle, Pip scouted ahead with her flight capabilities, and Grunther served as an increasingly worried mobile cover. Commander Vrel followed silently, occasionally clicking his mandibles in what Marcus had learned meant he was taking mental notes for future lessons. Probably something titled, "Why Humans Should Never Touch Ancient Artifacts, a Case Study." An hour later, exhausted and covered in dust from collapsed corridors, they reached the main entrance. The door was sealed from the inside. Behind them, parts of the vault were still active, still reconfiguring, still very much trying to kill them. "Relic," Marcus said, "please tell me you can open this door." "Calculating," the Relic said. "The probability of this door opening without proper authorization codes is approximately 0.003%. "So you're saying there's a chance," Marcus said. "I am saying that with sufficient application of enhanced probability manipulation, that number could increase to approximately 37%. "I'll take those odds," Marcus said. He placed his hand on the door panel, focused every bit of willpower he had on the idea that somewhere in the ancient systems, something would glitch, something would fail. Some random cascade of improbable events would result in this door opening. The Relic blazed with light. The door exploded outward. "I said open," Marcus yelled over the sound of tearing metal. "Not destroy." "You were not specific enough," the Relic said. "I am still learning your parameters." They stumbled out into the corridor beyond, where a dozen security drones were waiting with Commander Vrel's second-in-command, a frustrated-looking officer named Tarek. "Sir," Tarek said, looking at Vrel, "we've been trying to reach you for an hour. The vault went into emergency protocols. We thought you were all dead." "Nearly," Vrel said, "but the exercise was educational, primarily in what happens when you give humans access to predecessor technology." Behind them, the vault was still rumbling, still angry, still very much awake for the first time in millennia. "Should we be worried about that?" Pip asked. "Tremendously," Vrel confirmed. "But that is a problem for the station engineers. You 5 have a final examination to complete." The Galactic Council chamber on Station Fortress Prime was significantly nicer than the vault, which was setting the bar low, but Marcus appreciated it anyway. He stood at the center of the room, the Relic still bonded to his hand, facing a semicircle of council representatives who looked like they couldn't decide if they were impressed or horrified. Commander Vrel had debriefed them, which meant Marcus, Crevor, Pip, and Grunther had spent 3 hours explaining how they had accidentally activated the most dangerous artifact in known space and lived to tell about it. Crevor, to his credit, had been honest in his testimony. The human showed courage, tactical thinking, and adaptability under pressure. I was incorrect in my initial assessment of his species. That had been surprisingly difficult for the Thraxian to say, judging by how his scales had darkened to nearly black. Now the council was deciding what to do with Marcus and his new ancient weapon friend. "Cadet Webb," the head counselor said, a crystalline being whose voice sounded like chimes, "the Relic has bonded with you. This is unprecedented. The Academy has attempted to find compatible users for predecessor technology for 43 years. Candidates from 17 different species have tried. All failed. You succeeded within seconds." "In my defense," Marcus said, "I didn't really do anything. The Relic picked me." "Because you are human," the counselor said. "The predecessors studied your world. They left detailed notes. We have accessed them from the Vault's database. Would you like to know what they said?" "I'm assuming it's not, 'These guys are great at parties,'" Marcus said. The counselor made a sound that might have been a laugh. "They said that humans were the most terrifying species they had ever studied. Not because you were strong, not because you were intelligent, but because you never stopped. You chased prey for days until it died of exhaustion. You survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that should have ended your species. You turned rocks into tools, tools into weapons, and weapons into ideologies. You looked at problems that should have been impossible and solved them anyway through sheer stubbornness and creativity." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I mean, when you put it like that, we sound kind of scary. You are scary, Crever said from the side of the room. I have been trying to intimidate you for 6 months. You responded with sarcasm and a smile. That is not normal prey behavior. That's because we're not prey, Marcus said. We just look like we should be. That's kind of the point. Humans figured out a long time ago that the best hunting strategy is looking harmless right up until we're not. The predecessors called it psychological warfare, the counselor continued. They were fascinated by humanity's ability to win conflicts through means other than direct combat, propaganda, deception, attrition, making your enemies too tired to fight, convincing them the battle is not worth winning. This is why the Relic bonded with you. It was designed for species that fight smarter, not harder. Pip, sitting in the observation section, raised a wing. So what happens now? Does Marcus keep the Relic? The Relic cannot be removed without killing the bonded user, Vrel said. We have 2 options. We can attempt to study the bond in a controlled environment, which would require Cadet Webb to remain under observation indefinitely. Or we can acknowledge that the Relic has chosen, train Cadet Webb in its proper use, and allow both to serve the Galactic Council as intended. I vote for the second one, Marcus said immediately. Noted, the counselor said, chiming with what was definitely amusement now. We concur. Cadet Marcus Webb, you are hereby granted provisional clearance to wield Relic 773. A training version will be created for practice. The original will remain in secure storage except during authorized operations. Wait, Marcus said. Training version? The engineers will begin fabrication immediately, the counselor confirmed. We anticipate it will only have a 20% chance of accidental explosions. That's not as reassuring as you think it is, Marcus said. Welcome to the Galactic military, Vrel said, his mandibles clicking in what was definitely amusement. You will all report to your new assignments tomorrow. Dismissed. As they filed out of the chamber, Crever fell into step beside Marcus. The Thraxian was silent for a long moment before speaking. I owe you an apology, human. Marcus corrected. If we're doing apologies, we should probably use names. Very well. Marcus. I judged your species based on appearance and assumption. That was incorrect. You are not prey. You are something far more dangerous. You are patient predators who hunt with your minds instead of your claws. I'm going to take that as a compliment, Marcus said. It is meant as one. Crever paused. I would not object to serving on the same team in the future, if you can tolerate my presence. Are you going to keep calling me an ambulatory meat sack? Probably occasionally. Then we're good, Marcus said, grinning. 3 days later, Marcus stood in the combat training hall with the training version of the Relic, demonstrating its capabilities to a class of stunned cadets. Crever watched from the sidelines, his arms crossed but his expression thoughtful. Pip perched on Grunther's shoulder, both of them looking far too proud of their human friend. Commander Vrel observed from the instructor platform, taking notes. The key to human combat doctrine, Marcus explained to the assembled cadets, is that we don't fight fair. We fight smart. We use tools, terrain, psychology, and stubbornness. The Relic just amplifies what we already do naturally. He demonstrated by using the training Relic to manipulate probability, causing a series of training drones to malfunction in increasingly improbable ways. One drone's weapons jammed. Another's targeting system locked onto a third drone instead of Marcus. A fourth simply fell out of the air for no apparent reason. You are weaponizing bad luck, one cadet observed. I'm weaponizing statistics, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. After the demonstration, as the cadets filed out, Vrel approached Marcus. You realize, the commander said, that you have fundamentally altered how the galaxy perceives your species. Humans were considered weak, non-threatening. Now they are considered unpredictable and dangerous. Is that a problem? Marcus asked. Not for me, Vrel said. But you should know that fear and respect often look the same from a distance. The galaxy should be more afraid of humans who smile than humans who scream. One promises a fight, the other promises strategy. Marcus considered this, then shrugged. Works for me. We've been underestimated for most of our history. Might as well lean into it. Indeed, Vrel said, mandibles clicking. Welcome to Graduated Status Specialist Webb. Try not to destroy any more ancient vaults. No promises, Marcus said, still smiling. The Relic hummed in agreement.